February 18th, 2020. All right, what's up, guys? So today, I really just want to have one topic, and that topic is going to be about a hero of our time. And it's a person whose credibility is constantly attacked, but he stands with courage, with strength, and with integrity through it all. And his life has been destroyed for decades because he had the courage to actually challenge the status quo around vaccines are safe and effective as he was doing research to help kids that were struggling with colitis, Crohn's, irritable bowel disorder, who also happen to have autism. And so that right there should let you know I'm talking about Andy Wakefield. Dr. Andrew Wakefield is truly an amazing man. And all you will hear in the mainstream is that he's a fraud, that he is a shameful person, that he single-handedly brought back measles across the world, which is such BS. Okay, they have to have a scapegoat for the fact that their vaccine is failing like crazy and that it is actually causing damage, and they leverage this story about Andrew Wakefield literally as a simple tool of misdirection, illusion. Again, guys, the elite. Go check out the They Who playlist, Fear versus Freedom channel. They're masters of illusion. Okay, the social engineering is only effective because they have it down to a science. They know how to use misdirection to get you to look at some other issue and not at the real data. And I'm not saying that Dr. Wakefield's content is not the real data, because it actually is very valid science. But he never once, in this paper that was retracted, said that there was a causal link between MMR and autism. And that wasn't even the point of that paper. But because the majority of the parents did say that this regression that they witnessed of their children happened right after MMR, he had a moral liability to put that into the paper. And this is what caused all the controversy. So let's actually take a look at some of the BS that the mainstream does to get people to kind of freak out about what's going on. So I'm going to go here. I'll actually go here. Let me just make sure okay. All right, so today I saw this article. I guess last night. Last night I saw it. And so I wanted to talk to you about it today. Would you trust your child with this anti-vaxx ex-doctor? And what do you mean? What does he mean by that? I don't know. Medical care, whatever. I'll tell you right now. Would I trust my child to any doctor for care? No, I would not just hand over my kid and say, you make all the decisions. I learned my lesson that is completely the wrong way to handle it. Would I consult with a doctor to discuss options and then make my decisions for my child based on what I feel is best? Sure, I would do that. And hands down, I would do that with Dr. Andrew Wakefield. You bet. This guy cares about everyone. He's trying to help heal people. He is a great man. And yes, I would consult with Andrew Wakefield, then do my own due diligence and research and make my best decision for my kid. I don't trust anybody to just make those decisions without consulting me first. So as I'm looking up Steven Salzberg to figure out what's his motivation, what's his background, why is he writing this article, one of the most recent articles he also wrote was how the anti-vax activists use conspiracy theories to spread fear of vaccines. Guys, you have to understand the tools, the mechanisms of neuro-linguistic programming. Okay, there's very strong science in how to word articles and headlines, TV shows, to plant ideas in your head and control your way of thinking. And this is exactly how they do it. They have to tie vaccine risk or even vaccine hesitancy or ways to put it like that that are actually logical and sound like, well, that's actually a very conscious thing to do, to want to understand what you're injecting in your body, or to be hesitant about the safety of these vaccines because there's so many stories of people getting harmed by them. So they have to make it sound like you're absolutely crazy if you question the sacredness, the sanctity of vaccines and vaccinology. So they have to tie a derogatory term toward you're anti-vax, and they take anti-vax and make it synonymous or equal to conspiracy theorists. And everybody knows that conspiracy theorists are wacko crazy because you're just psychotic if you believe in these conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theory is a term actually developed by the CIA to get people to be labeled and tied into these wacky terms so that they can create association in your mind. Anti-vax, man, that's associated with conspiracy theorists, and conspiracy theorists are associated with psychopaths and crazy people. And so if you're any of those things, you're automatically crazy. Think about how they word things in these articles. Okay, so Steven Salzberg, let's see what you have to say about anti-vaxxers. The World Health Organization recently declared that vaccine hesitancy, as they called it, was one of the top threats to global health. That's right, it's right up there with air pollution, climate change, oh my gosh, influenza, oh my gosh, Ebola, and other threats. For the World Health Organization, vaccine hesitancy is a polite phrase designed to engage the public and highlight how serious the problem is without angering those who are guilty of it. Well, I'm not going to be so polite. Vaccine hesitant means anti-vax. There, he said it, you're a crazy conspiracy theorist. The anti-vax movement, which aggressively spreads fear and misinformation about vaccines, except the World Health Organization admits that the information that's being spread is true, and that's why they can't just suppress it because it's true, has become a major worldwide threat. It also resembles a cult. Oh man, let's make them even more crazy, right? They're a cult. And let me explain. The most recent anti-vax nonsense centers on the new coronavirus that originated in China and that has led the Chinese government to impose a massive quarantine affecting millions of people. This is a genuine public health crisis, and it has nothing to do with the vaccines, right? It doesn't. But nonetheless, some anti-vaxxers have claimed that the new virus originated from a failed effort to create a coronavirus vaccine, which it definitely could have. Nobody knows. They do believe it is linked back to a laboratory of the CDC in Wuhan, but let's move on. Nonetheless, some anti-vaxxers have claimed that the new virus originated from failed efforts to create the coronavirus vaccine. Well, I'm not going to get into that here, but Orrick has lengthy, detailed takedown of that bogus claim. You can link over there and see that. Vaccine hesitancy sometimes refers to parents who are just learning about vaccines for the first time and who rely on the internet to search for information. Unfortunately, these new parents are likely to be flooded with anti-vax messages, especially on Facebook. In recent years, Google's taken steps to lower the priority of anti-vax sites. It's called shadow banning, which has improved things considerably. Sites such as healthychildren.org now appear near the top of searches for vaccine safety. It's entirely reasonable to ask your doctor about the benefits and risks of vaccines. Except that doctors only get maybe half a day at best, ha ha ha, says World Health Organization, education around vaccines. So no, it's not entirely reasonable to ask your doctor, because I'm telling you right now, they don't know shit about it. Okay, but the answers that parents hear should be clear. Vaccines work. As physician ZDogg MD explains in this video. You can go watch all Z-Dog's information. Go ahead. I don't care. The problem is that anti-vaxxers are continuously creating new websites, Facebook groups, and even movies to spread misinformation about vaccines, particularly the long debunked claim that vaccines cause autism. Debunked my freaking toe. All right. So why do I suggest that anti-vaxxers resemble a cult? Because they have several of the key features that a cult has, such as members of the cult have special insights that outsiders cannot comprehend. With anti-vaxxers, this means they are completely convinced that they know that vaccines cause harm, despite mountains of evidence to the contrary. And yet he doesn't link one. He just says mountains of evidence, which is what you're going to hear in every article. Despite mountains of evidence to the contrary, and yet they don't link a single thing proving the safety of vaccines, because guess what? Zero exists. There's not a single double-blind clinical placebo-based trial of any of the vaccines on the current CDC schedule. All of them are tested. The placebo is another vaccine. So you're always going to be measuring harm against harm when looking at safety profile. It's never an inert placebo. So let's see the mountains of evidence, bud. The group and its leaders are the exclusive... Oh, by the way, they don't have any special insights, anti-vaxxers. In fact, everything that they know or have read or have researched, they try to share, because we believe that everybody has the intelligence to comprehend what we know and should know what we know. Everybody should. And what we know is that there is a severe lack of true science around safety profile of vaccines. There's hardly any at all, looking at the non-specific effects, the unintended consequences. So that, number one, total lie. Number two, the group and its leaders are the exclusive means of knowing truth or receiving validation, and no other process of discovery is credible. The anti-vax movement has had several prominent leaders whose followers flock to their speeches and events. This includes Andrew Wakefield, of course, is their number one, the disgraced former doctor who lost his medical license after it was revealed that he had committed fraud. His followers, though either don't know or ignore his fraudulent past, this is what you need to do, is go look at what is his fraudulent past and regard him as a hero. He makes a living from his books, a movie, and speaking fees, all based on spreading fear about vaccines. An even more prominent anti-vax leader is Robert Kennedy Jr., who also sells books and gives speeches proclaiming the harms of vaccines. You show me any topic where a doctor isn't selling books and making money on this topic that they research the most. There's books about health and nutrition. There's books about vaccines. Stanley Plotkin is making money on his book called Vaccines, the king of vaccines. So, duh. You got to make a living somehow. If you can help people live a healthy life by avoiding toxins from medication, go for it. So, thanks to his famous name, and despite the fact that he has no medical or scientific training, some people believe him. Unreasonable fear about the outside world, such as impending catastrophe, evil conspiracies, and persecution. Conspiracy theories are the core of many anti-vax arguments. The most common version holds that the medical establishment, whoever that is, well, it's the entire establishment of medicine, especially the pharmaceutical companies and the enterprise health systems. They are the biggest, most profitable companies in the world, are hiding the dangers of vaccines so that they can make money. Well, this is utter nonsense. All of the doctors I know in the infectious disease community are motivated by a wish to cure disease. Heck yes, they are. Doctors, look, they commit a decade of their life to education, hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, because they want to help people. And they're going down a specific path of education that is written by the medical establishment and whose all scientific information backs their business. Okay? They're trained by that business in how to help people, and they believe in what they're taught, but that doesn't make it the best option. No way have I ever seen any doctor that didn't have pure intentions to help cure. But that doesn't mean that what they were taught is what's best. Think about it. I don't believe that. I don't believe they're out to hurt people and just make money. In any case, most doctors make very little to no money from vaccines they administer, which is totally not true. Because the office visit may not be reimbursement specific to vaccines, but that's the only reason you're taking that baby back to that doctor every couple months after they're born. 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years. There's no need to go there. You can have a healthy baby without going to the doctor every couple months. So the only reason you have to go back to do that is to follow the vaccine schedule. So yes, they're getting reimbursed quite nicely for that. Number 4, no meaningful financial disclosure regarding budget or expenses. Actually, they all pretty much talk about what their finances are like, and that they're not taking money from other people. Del Big Treat, go watch the first opening segment. They always talk about how we don't have affiliations, we're not getting money, we would love donations if you could do it, but we're just trying to spread information. So, whatever. And they don't see that as a problem here. Sure, Pfizer will put right out there that they're making tens of billions of dollars off of their medications, even the trillions of dollars. So, whatever. This is such a stupid point. Some anti-vaxxers profit handsomely by selling bogus, ineffective supplements as alternatives to vaccines. If you're buying vitamin C or vitamin D, supplementing with magnesium, potassium, anything that your body actually needs, how in the world is that bogus? Or even ineffective? Supplementation is scientifically proven, especially with hormones. I say hormones because vitamin D is a hormone, really, a steroid. As well as minerals, electrolytes, all of those things vital to your health. You can't just, oh, don't worry, I can not worry about my nutritional intake because I got vaccines. That's not how it works. Ding dong. Scientist. And he says, I'm looking at you, Joe Mercola. Because supplements are largely unregulated, they get away with it. They'd prefer you to think they're just in it for the children, which, if you've not met or followed any of these people, their intentions are quite pure. I have no doubt that the anti-vaxxers like Wakefield, Kennedy, and others would deny that they are conspiracy theorists, because that's how conspiracy theorists operate. If you question them, they argue. You must be part of the conspiracy, but their own reasoning, they can never be wrong. And that's not true. If you follow Del Big Tree of the High Wire, Robert Kennedy, if they are wrong, they're the first to admit it and say, you know what, we put it out there, it says here's a hypothesis, we were wrong, here's where the data's taking us now. Happens all the time. So more often they'll admit that they're wrong than if they ever didn't. So if you encounter someone, either on the sidelines at your kid's soccer game or on Facebook or elsewhere, who's spreading claims that vaccines are harmful, pause for a minute and ask, what is the source of this information? Is it coming from someone who is profiting from this fear-mongering? There's a good chance the answer is yes. That is hilarious, okay? I'm one of these guys. I'm putting out information all the time. Where's it coming from? Is it coming from some dad that's trying to profit off of this? I don't make crap. In fact, I sacrifice time away from my wife and kids. They're very busy to do these videos just to help spread information. And I always reference scientific, medical, peer-reviewed journal studies and papers, or actual articles that you can read on your own. I'm always pointing you to the information. I'm never just telling you don't do it because I said so. I'll use my personal experience as an example for sure. Okay. It's ironic that when the world is faced with a true health emergency, such as Ebola virus or the Wuhan coronavirus, the first thing that public health experts start to work on is a new vaccine. It's so ironic. That's because vaccine provides our best protection against infection. No, it doesn't. A healthy body does. Your immune system does. Being able to arm your body with the proper tools through a healthy lifestyle is the best protection against infections, not vaccines. We now have effective vaccines for 16 whole diseases. Wow. Again, amongst trillions of different kinds of bacteria and viruses, there's an unending ceiling of options for future vaccines, and I feel so bad for our children's children who are going to be lined up for hundreds, if not thousands, of vaccines throughout their youth. It's disgusting. That's the plan, by the way. Okay, so we have vaccines for 16 diseases that used to harm and even kill in large numbers around the world, and now our vaccines kill them instead. We've eliminated smallpox worldwide, and we've nearly eliminated polio, thanks to vaccines. Yeah, they also eliminated smallpox and yellow fever and typhoid. Oh wait, the plague. Oh, none of those actually had a worldwide vaccine. But they went away the same way these did. Interesting. They're very effective is what has allowed the anti-vax message. Their very effectiveness is what has allowed the anti-vax message to take hold, because many people are no longer frightened or dying from infectious disease. We're still a long way from conquering infections, but there's no reason for the world to slip back into the time and era when large numbers of people died from preventable infections. Vaccines work if we'll let them. Thanks, Steve. All right, Steve. So fast forward 2 weeks. Here's the next article. Would you trust your child with this anti-vax ex-doctor? Again, guys, this is the misinformation. So not once has he linked any studies that actually prove the safety of vaccines, because they don't exist. Number two is they always want to steer you, if you're questioning vaccines, to this one topic. Andy Wakefield linking MMR to autism in a study back in 1998. That study ended up getting retracted because of some fraudulent activity from a reporter named Brian Deere. You'll have to learn about this on your own because we don't have time. But again, this is that misdirection. If you've watched my videos, vaccine safe and effective, social engineering, flu fever death, more flu deaths. I have so many on vaccines. Aluminum toxicity. That's a great one. I referenced so many studies about how vaccines are harming people. This is peer-reviewed science. Okay? Never once do I actually go to this paper by Dr. Wakefield that's really not even talking about MMR and autism. He just says the parents reported that happened. They always drive you toward this topic to steer you away from all the mountains of other science that shows how vaccines damage and even kill people. This is how misdirection works. And doctors that are getting trained how to handle vaccine hesitancy in their patients always veer the conversation over to Andy Wakefield. You say, and if you haven't seen my video from months ago called So Pissed, Doctors Don't Know the Details, go watch it, because this is exactly what happened. We tell the neurologist we can't do vaccines for Holden because it causes epilepsy, and she says, that's been debunked. I said, what's been debunked? I haven't even told you the science that I'm talking about. And I'm talking about dozens of aluminum studies that are showing the toxicity to the brain and it's destroying our brains. She's going to Andy Wakefield's study. I go, what's been debunked? Andy Wakefield? And I knew that's where I was going to go because that's the only thing doctors know about. Yes, Andy Wakefield's paper's been debunked. And I said, I'm not even talking about Andy Wakefield, but you don't even know what that study's about. He wasn't looking for a connection to MMR. He was studying kids with severe with a very novel type of infection, a new type of infection that they were seeing in conjunction with autism, in conjunction with developmental regression of these children. And through this study, it was self-reported by the parents of these children that this regression and deterioration instantly started right after the MMR vaccine. And he included that in the paper. And none of that is what the movie Vaxxed is about. So take a look at this entire article. Let me just highlight the lies. Yeah, that should do it. And I'm not even kidding. This entire article is 100% lies. And again, this neurolinguistic programming that's going on with the language here is planting a seed that this guy, Andy Wakefield, is crazy, that he's fraudulent, that he was deceptive, and he's just looking out for himself, and that Vaxxed is about his story, and that Vaxxed 2 is about his story. And they're saying, but don't even go look at it because it's all garbage. Pay attention. Today I want to shine a bit of light on the conspiracy theory behind the film Vaxxed and its recent sequel, Vaxxed 2. Now, I'm not going to provide you any links to this movie. I'm not even going to describe it, except to say that it is a slickly produced conspiracy theory masquerading as a documentary. Don't watch it. Don't watch it. That's hilarious. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to tell you what it's about, but don't watch it. Anti-vax activists often use conspiracy theory tactics which work like this. They simply make up a claim out of thin air. Yes, tens of thousands, if not millions, of parents who watch their perfectly developing child go into the doctor's office, get a shot, rapidly regress, and end up a totally different kid are just making it up out of thin air. That a secret cabal of doctors or government scientists or pharma companies is out to harm patients by giving them vaccines and is hiding the truth about the risk of vaccination. Never mind how irrational this is, and never mind that there's not a shred of evidence behind it. If you try to argue with the anti-vaxxers, you're part of the conspiracy. That's not true. Everybody tries to argue with the anti-vaxxers because everyone's been conditioned to have a blind faith in medicine that it is our savior, and it is not. Rather than try to disprove something that was never proven in the first place, let's look instead at the source of the anti-vax propaganda film Vaxxed. The source is one man, Andrew Wakefield. Who is this guy, and why is he so obsessed with vaccines? I'll tell you why he's obsessed with vaccines. Because having the courage to question the safety of vaccines, this cabal, deep state, medical establishment, it's a lot more powerful than this guy wants you to believe. And they destroyed Andy's life. Destroyed his life. Wakefield was once a doctor before he had his license revoked a decade ago. In his former life, he was a gastroenterologist, and a very good gastroenterologist, with no special training in vaccines, which is true, or in infectious diseases. That couldn't be further from the truth. I'm sorry, but a gastroenterologist is going to have very in-depth training on infectious disease when they're treating diseases like Crohn's, colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, irritable bowel disease, things like that. You bet they understand infectious disease. He first gained fame, a lot of fame, for a 1998 paper in a medical journal, The Lancet, in which he claimed to have discovered a link between the MMR vaccine and autism. And that is not what they said. They did not claim that there was a link. In fact, in the paper it actually says, we have not proven any type of link. Here are some of the things you need to know about Andy Wakefield before watching his movie. And again, this is just trying to prep it so that you don't watch it. Wakefield's 1998 paper, it eventually turned out was an elaborate fraud. Nothing about the paper is incorrect or fraudulent, and everything that he states in that paper has been proven true in papers since then over and over and over again. The gut-brain axis connection with autism and irritable bowel syndrome or Crohn's disease and things like that has been proven. Many things. I'm going to read this, but I need you guys to go do your own research on Andy Wakefield just to understand that this whole argument, this literally a distraction from all the other proof that vaccines harm, is BS. Wakefield defrauded the public, his patients, and even his own co-authors on the paper, most of whom were unaware of his elaborate conflicts of interest. Whatever. Before he published his 1998 study, Wakefield was hired by a lawyer, Richard Barr, who was trying to build a lawsuit against vaccine makers. Barr paid Wakefield to help him build his case. Wakefield's co-authors weren't aware of this contract. This is not true. So you're going to have to... I'll point you to where you can find some more information. The study claimed that 8 out of 12 children had been diagnosed with autism soon after getting the MMR vaccine. It described these children as a consecutive series of admissions to the hospital where Wakefield worked. That was a lie, it turned out, as investigative journalist Brian Deere revealed that all 12 children had their parents were referred to Wakefield by Barr, the lawyer who was paying Wakefield to conduct this study, and who was trying to sue vaccine makers. This is all not true. Wakefield also falsified data on all 12 of the children in his original study. Wakefield conducted invasive and distressing procedures on the children without approval from his hospital's ethics board. Not true. After learning some of the backstory, 10 of his 12 co-authors tried to retract the paper in 2004. Wakefield refused to join them, so they published a partial retraction signed by the 10. The Lancet itself fully retracted the paper, but it took until 2010 for them to act. By then, the anti-vax movement had spread widely. Prior to publishing his paper, Wakefield filed a patent claim for a safer vaccine for measles, one that would have profited him greatly once he discredited the perfectly safe MMR vaccine. After losing his license in the UK, Wakefield moved to Austin, Texas, where he ran an organization called Thoughtful House, through which he paid himself a salary of $280,000. So what? People pay themselves salaries that are heads of organizations all the time. The guy has a life to live. For more than 20 years, Wakefield has made money off false claims that vaccines cause autism, first put forth in the discredited 1998 paper. He gives talks, writes books, conducts seminars, and now makes movies of which make him money. Since the publication of his paper, dozens of studies involving literally millions of children have shown time and time again that vaccines do not cause autism. Wakefield has denied every one of those studies and continues to push his bogus claims. Why, you might ask? Have scientists conducted studies looking for a link between autism and vaccines? If there was never any evidence for such a link? The answer is simple. Anti-vaxxers have been so successful at scaring people about non-existent threat that scientists and public health experts felt it necessary to conduct those studies in order to reassure people. Literally millions of dollars have been spent to prove something we already knew. Again, he's not linking any of those studies. Meanwhile, measles outbreaks have appeared with increasing frequency in the US, the UK, and other European countries and around the world, including the deadly outbreak in Samoa last year, which caused 5,700 infections and 83 deaths in a population of just 200,000. Wakefield's new movie was released in the middle of that outbreak. So to anyone who watched the movie Vaxxed and is now having doubts about vaccines, I ask, would you trust your children with this man? I wouldn't. Well, guess what, Steve? I wouldn't trust you with any of my children because you put all your faith in science and you're so deep in science that you can't see that nature actually provides us with all the answers. And what do you do? Do you have any bias on the scientific side of medicine? Let's see. Bloomberg Distinguished Professor, PhD, Professor of Biomedical Engineering, Computer Science and Biostatistics. I wonder why you have such a bias toward vaccines. Because not once did you take a responsible, objective approach to anything in either of those articles. It was very attacking and very biased because it goes without saying that there is huge risk with vaccines. And that is scientifically proven, and you know it. But you make it sound like it's crazy and that they're perfectly safe for everybody. So what do you do? Your current work emphasizes analysis of DNA and RNA sequencing with next-generation technology. Your blogs and other writing cover topics on the impact of science on society, including the effects of pseudoscience and the problems with alternative medicine, as well as the anti-vaccination movement, oh my heck, your whole agenda is to attack anybody that questions science. Well, if science was pure, we wouldn't have to. But unfortunately, science is for sale. And science has always been for sale to the highest bidder. And these labs, especially university labs, who need funding to do their work, receive their funding from the large corporations who need these labs to prove safety of their products. And if they want to continue getting that funding, they're going to support that safety. It's not that hard to figure out, guys. So you want to understand all the information? Look at both sides of the argument. This British Medical Journal editorial, Wakefield's article linking MMR vaccine and autism was fraudulent. Go ahead and look that up and read it. You can read all the accusations that are in here about it. Figure it out on your own. Better yet, go actually read the retracted study that wasn't retracted until 2010, published in 1998, so it sat there for 12 years before it ended up getting retracted. That's not common. But go read it. It's called Ileal Lymphoid Nodular Hyperplasia, Nonspecific Colitis, and Pervasive Development Disorder in Children. No, this doesn't say MMR and autism link, blah, 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 blah. He was studying these novel infections in these kids that had pervasive developmental disorders. And what they found was there were some commonalities and correlation to them receiving the MMR and a lot of their issues starting there. So what were they actually doing? We investigated a consecutive series of children with chronic enterocolitis and regressive developmental disorders. 12 children were referred to a pediatric gastroenterology unit with a history of normal development, followed by a loss of acquired skills, including language, together with diarrhea and abdominal pain. Children underwent gastroenterological, neurological, and developmental assessment and review of developmental records. Ileal colonoscopy and biopsy sampling, magnetic resonance imaging, electroencephalography, and lumbar puncture were done under sedation. Barium follow-through radiology was done where possible. Biochemical, hematological, and immunological profiles were examined. Findings: onset of behavioral symptoms was associated by the parents with measles, mumps, and rubella vaccination in 8 of the 12 children, with measles infection in one child and otitis media in another. All 12 children had intestinal abnormalities ranging from lymphoid nodular hypoplasia to aphthoid ulceration. Histology showed patchy chronic inflammation in the colon in 11 children and reactive ileal lymphoid hyperplasia in 7, but no granulomas. Behavioral disorders include autism, disintegrative psychosis, and possible post-viral or vaccinal encephalitis. There were no focal neurological abnormalities, and MRI and EEG tests came back normal. Abnormal laboratory results were significantly raised urinary methylmalonic acid compared with age controls, low hemoglobin in 4 children, and low serum IAG in 4 children. Goes on and on and on. So I'm just searching for what are you can read the whole thing, look through the tables, you can see how many times the measles vaccine played a part in what the parents are reporting as what happened, which is actually one of the most important things, is getting real world events reported by the parents. So this is one child had received monovalent measles vaccine at 15 months, after which his development slowed down. Monovalent just means the measles shot, not MMR. Okay. No association was made with the vaccine at that time. He then received a dose of MMR at between the ages of 4 and 5. The day after, which his mother described a striking deterioration in his behavior that she did link with the immunization. Child 9 received measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine at 16 months. At 18 months, he developed recurrent antibiotic-resistant otitis media and the first behavioral symptoms, including disinterest in his siblings and lack of play. And so there's multiple areas in here where they're talking about how the vaccine was causing, or how symptoms began right after the vaccine was given. And they says, again, think about what they said in this article. It says, he specifically states that they linked the MMR to autism. But in the actual study, it says, we did not prove an association between MMR and the syndrome described. Virological studies are underway that may help resolve this issue. Okay. So they didn't do any of those things. So you can also go in and read a very in-depth statement by Dr. Wakefield back in 2004 about the paper being challenged to be retracted. Very in-depth, he goes through allegation by allegation and explains everything that happened. All of these things that are in this article are lies. So go through and read this statement by Dr. Andrew Wakefield. It's in the Lancet, volume 363, issue 9411. Great read. Go read it. The other thing you can do is go over to the Fear versus Freedom channel, over to playlists, find the vaccine playlist. Again, for those of you saying, I've done my research, if all you've done is look at the pro arguments and the CDC information, you haven't done enough. If you haven't, look, if you've done very in-depth research on every reason why you should vaccinate, that's awesome. Now you need to take all of that effort and put equal amount into every reason why you shouldn't vaccinate. Then you take that data and you weigh it out and you decide what is the risk to benefit ratio for you and your family, and you make that decision. So, the majority of you have not given an equal effort onto the risk. So, in the Fear versus Freedom channel, in the vaccine playlist, I have hundreds, over 100, really wonderful videos that are all backed by science that you can go through and listen to these lectures. You can watch the references on the slides, go look up the studies in PubMed, read through them yourself. Start learning about the risks of vaccination. Who are my favorites? Dr. Andy Wakefield, Dr. Suzanne Humphries, Del Bigtree, Dr. Russell Blaylock. Those are my tops. So if you jump into this playlist, you can go through a whole long list of really great and comprehensive presentations by Del Bigtree at the High Wire, and Children's Health Defense, Robert Kennedy. This one's fantastic on Gardasil, HPV, and the damage that it's doing. Aluminum information. Teresa Deischer on live viral vaccines with the aborted fetal tissue and how it's affecting stem cells in the body and things like that. Dr. Suzanne Humphries really covers everything. She's so amazing. I've watched I've watched all of these obviously, but every one of her videos multiple times. To me, she's the best educator on the topic. Dr. Russell Blaylock, neurosurgeon. His videos are fantastic, and not just on vaccines, on health in general. What I want you to get to is the video titled The Most Important Interview of Our Time, where Del Bigtree sits down and very objectively asks him some very point-blank questions about his entire history and this entire debate between that Lancet paper and the reporter Brian Deere, and what actually happened and how his reputation was destroyed along with his entire life. Destroyed for standing up for findings that he uncovered that were causing horrific consequences to kids getting the MMR. He was doing the right thing, and his life was destroyed for it. He is a man of great integrity. Watch this, learn about this man and who he is. And then you can go to his channel, Vaccine Risks. His life was destroyed by vaccines, by questioning the sanctity of vaccines You bet he's done his research to defend himself, and he knows his stuff. This is one of the best series. Vaccine Risks is the channel. I've got them in order on my playlist. Start with vaccines, their safety, effectiveness, and risk, and you just keep on going. And it's a very lengthy, in-depth, very detailed playlist around infectious disease and vaccination. Really great stuff. I mean, I have so many good videos in here. You guys got to just dive into this stuff. If you're not watching mine, go watch these. So, yep, just wanted to show you some of the tools that they use in mainstream to distract you away from something that's actually quite important. So when he talks about all this BS and trying to discredit Andy Wakefield, what he's trying to do is get you not to watch Vaxxed or Vaxxed 2. And spoiler alert, neither of these movies have anything to do with Andy Wakefield. Andy Wakefield and Del Bigtree co-produced Vaxxed, but it wasn't about Andy. It wasn't about his paper, and it wasn't about anything like that. If you don't know what it's about, you really need to go watch Vaxxed. You can buy it on Google Play, YouTube. It's $10. Buy it. Watch it. What's it about? It's about Dr. William Thompson, who is a head researcher at the CDC, senior scientist. They did a study trying to prove that there was no connection between MMR and autism. And they found one. And they destroyed their data and manipulated the data to remove that signal from the data and published a fraudulent paper. Dr. William Thompson, in 2014, 10 years after that paper had been published, couldn't take it anymore and came out and said, I can't live with myself. I can't believe we did this. We destroyed a bunch of data that proved there was a link between the MMR and autism, causing all kinds of neurological damage, and it's even worse for African American or black boys. And they eliminated that group from the study and manipulated the data. That's why they use these epidemiological studies. They completely changed the qualifying criteria in the study so that they could get rid of this link. And he came forward and admitted to it, and he had saved the documents, and that is what Vaxxed is about. It's about fraud at the CDC, and that the CDC can no longer be trusted to police themselves, just like the EPA and the FDA and all the others. Extremely corrupt. It is worth watching. You need to get your hands on Vaxxed. If you can find the DVD, if you can trust us to police the movie, do it. This is a fantastic movie. And it's not about Andy Wakefield. It's about the CDC themselves working with Merck to cover up the fact that there is a causal relationship between vaccines and autism. Go watch that movie and go watch Vaxxed 2. Vaxxed 2 is completely different. It's actually called The People's Truth. And it is hundreds of interviews of families whose children's lives were destroyed, just like mine, just like my baby's life, destroyed by vaccines. And as we keep telling you, there's no study that is vaxxed versus unvaxxed. But what you'll see in this movie is there's actually hundreds of thousands of these studies within homes, because parents will go get their kids vaccinated and their kids become damaged with autism, with seizures, with paralysis, with diabetes, dying. And they'll get through one or two kids before they finally realize, you know what, I think it's the vaccines. And then kids 2, 3, and 4, or 4, 5, and 6, or whatever in these households, the younger ones don't get any vaccines, and the older ones did. And guess what they found? All their kids that got vaccinated had high rates of ear infections, sinus infections, colds, sickness. Their immune systems didn't work properly. And their unvaccinated kids, if they even showed symptoms of getting sick, would only have it for maybe a day. And they'd get over it like that. And they were the healthiest kids in the family. And so there's all these mini studies inside homes where they'd have vax versus unvax. And it's a great control group because these kids are all eating the same food that mom and dad give them every day. And they're in the same environment. And so you have this very wonderfully controlled control group along with the vaccinated group. And you're getting this side-by-side look from all these families in the country who recognize vaccine injury in their first few kids and then didn't vaccinate their last few kids, and every single time without fail, the unvaccinated are far healthier. I mean, to the point where there's severe disability with perfect health. So, watch Vax too. Make sure you watch them both because they don't have anything to do with Andy Wakefield. And every time the media, they always talk about Andy Wakefield this and that's been proven wrong and this is fraudulent and that's fraudulent. First of all, that's all lies and that's beside the point. I don't care if that paper was fraud. All the science that points to the damage the vaccine does has nothing to do with Andy Wakefield's paper. He was just courageous enough to say that in the research he was doing, they found that there could be a problem with the MMR. He raised the flag to say, hey, here's something we need to be looking at to protect children, and his life was destroyed for it. So don't let when you go into the doctor's office, you new parent, or even if you're got older kids and you're now just deciding maybe I don't want to have any more vaccines, and you go in and say, you know what, I'm kind of worried, let's talk about this. They're going to say, oh my gosh, Andy Wakefield study's been debunked. And you get to say, I'm not talking about Andy Wakefield study. I'm talking about aluminum toxicity. I'm talking about type 1 diabetes. I'm talking about all autoimmune disease that's triggered from vaccines, and there's tons of science, guys. I reference tons of it in my videos if you watch them. Or go watch The High Wire. Go watch Children's Health Defense. These are all backed by science, and it's really important that you look at the data. They don't want you to. They want you to say, oh, it's been proven time and time again. Oh my gosh, there's a mountain of evidence. There's thousands of studies. And if your doctor says that, say, well, let's look at them then. Show them to me. Well, I don't have them right now. Well, I need to see them. And I also want to read the vaccine insert. Show it to me. And I also want you to look at the studies that I found. Read this. And you talk about it all. And if they're not willing to do that, they don't give a crap about you or your kid. They just want you to follow their protocol because that's all they know. That's all they've been trained. And protocol trumps everything. So, learn the details, guys. Go watch Vaxxed. If he's saying don't watch it, there's something in there that you need to see. Go watch it. All right. I'm done. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.